How do I find a new job? How can I make a career change? And the biggest question of all, can I really find a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to be at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I get what companies are looking for when hiring top talent. What that means for you is an unmatched combination of insider knowledge and the best kept secrets about making heart-based career changes and navigating the ups and downs of job searching in today's world of work. Whether you're a recent graduate navigating the job market for the first time or a seasoned professional ready for a career change, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to be challenged and inspired to move beyond your self-doubt and take the right next steps towards landing a career you love. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm Jen Smith, your host, and I'm thrilled to have you join me for part 2 of our series about laying the groundwork for a bright year ahead. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like life pulls you in too many directions, leaving you scattered, unfocused, and disconnected from what really matters? If that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. Today, we are talking about the energy of grace-filled intentions and how they can shape your actions, sharpen your focus, and realign you with what matters most in your heart-based career. It's about creating a space for purpose and calm in the world full of noise. So to kick things off, I want to share a story that gave me a fresh perspective on intention and presence. This is a little wisdom from an unexpected source. Picture this. I was out shopping with my best friend. While she was on a mission, frantically trying on everything she could get her hands on, I found myself waiting on the sidelines, amused and maybe a little restless. As I waited, I struck up a conversation with the sales associate. She had this incredible warmth. She was so present and engaging. And our chat turned into a discussion about our phones and how they pull people away from the moment. And that's when she shared something that her son told her. Be where your feet are. It's so simple but profound, and this phrase became her daily mantra, and now it's mine too. By the end of our conversation, my bestie had made her purchases, and I walked away with more than just a great story. I had a grounding reminder of the power of presence, and it's one that's stayed with me ever since. So today, I hope this discussion serves as your reminder to be where your feet are as we rise above the chaos and chart a path forward with grace-filled intentions. So let's dive in. Goals and intentions are two sides of the same coin, yet they serve different purposes in how we approach our lives and our careers. Understanding the distinction can help us find more balance and alignment in our actions. Goals are very specific, measurable outcomes. They're your finish line, your checklist, the tangible targets to set and mark your progress. Think of goals as the what you want to achieve. So for example, complete a project by Friday, hit a monthly sales target, run 3 miles today. While goals are helpful for giving us direction, they can sometimes feel rigid or unforgiving. And as we know, life has a way of throwing curveballs, unexpected challenges, shifting priorities, or even just low energy days. And when we fall short of a goal, it can leave us feeling disappointed or defeated. For instance, if your goal is to run 3 miles today and you only manage 1, the outcome might feel like a failure, even if you laced up your sneakers and got out there, which is an accomplishment in itself. Intentions, on the other hand, are about how you want to show up and why something matters. They're rooted in your values and they provide a flexible framework for action. Think of intentional goals as the how and why behind your efforts. So for example, instead of run 3 miles today, your intention could be move my body in a way that feels energizing. Or instead of finish this project by Friday, your intentional goal could be something like approach this project with focus and creativity. If it's not done by Friday, it will flow into next week. Of course, if you have a hard deadline, you have to prioritize time, although you can still set an intention to complete it with creativity and joy. Intentions are adaptable and they're forgiving. They create space for grace, allowing you to honor your effort even if the outcome doesn't look exactly as planned. They're about aligning your actions with your values and making progress in a way that feels authentic and sustainable. So why does this matter? When we focus solely on traditional goals, it's easy to get caught up in the cycle of productivity for productivity's sake. We might achieve the goal, but we can lose sight of why we're pursuing it, or even worse, we start to feel exhausted and burnt out along the way. Intentions, however, serve as like this guiding light. They remind us that progress isn't always linear and that how we show up matters just as much as what we achieve. They allow us to celebrate the effort and the alignment behind our actions, not just that final outcome. And here's the thing about intentionality. It carries energy, and that energy translates to how others perceive your work. If you're rushing to finish a newsletter, trying to tick it off your list as quickly as possible, that hurried energy can seep into your words, and the reader is going to sense it. But if you sit down to write a calm, grounded, creative newsletter, maybe you have music playing in the background and you feel inspired, that energy also comes through and your readers will feel it when they receive it. And that's the power of intentionality. This goes for cover letters and emails that you're sending in a professional sense as well. And here's the truth that we don't talk about enough. Sometimes traditional goals can make you feel bad when you don't meet them. They can feel like an all or nothing proposition. Either you hit the target or you miss it. And when you miss it, it's easy to get caught up in that cycle of self-criticism. But intentions create the room for flexibility and self-compassion. If you set an intention to move your body in a way that feels energizing and you go for a walk instead of a run, you'll still celebrate showing up for yourself. And that's what matters. So let's talk about how to balance goals and intentions. The sweet spot is balancing the two. So you want to set clear goals to give yourself direction, anchor those goals in meaningful intentions to ensure they align with your values, and then, of course, revisit your intentions regularly to adapt to life's inevitable twists and turns. So here's some examples on how intentional goals can guide your actions. First, they provide clarity. So they clarify both the outcome and the approach. Instead of complete the project by Friday, an intentional goal might look like work on the project with focus and creativity so it reflects my best effort. Intentional goals allow for purposeful action. They naturally guide your choices. So if your intentional goal is to prioritize meaningful connections this week, you might proactively carve out time to send a thoughtful message or catch up with a friend or colleague. Another thing about intentional goals is that they're flexible. They allow you to adapt when life shifts. So for example, if you're too tired to finish writing your blog post this week, you might shift the goal to say something like, make progress on this blog post and finish it next week. That balance helps you stay grounded and connected to your why, making the journey as fulfilling as the destination. Now let's talk a little more about how intentions shape your actions. Unlike goals, which focus on a specific outcome, intentions shape how you navigate your day-to-day, keeping you rooted and grounded in what matters. I'll never forget the first time I sat down with a notebook and wrote out my intentions for the week. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. Instead of mapping out my rigid to-do list or a detailed plan, I approached things differently. And I asked myself, how do I want to show up this week? The answer was simple, with curiosity and creativity. That's it. No timelines, no checking boxes, just a commitment to embrace those two values in everything I did. And that week, something shifted. My actions started to feel more purposeful. I began to notice how distractions like emails that weren't urgent and unnecessary meetings or even deadlines and endless scrolling didn't align with my intentions. And it helped me notice that. So saying no became easier because I had clarity on what I was saying yes to. Now, of course, it wasn't a perfect week. Life is never perfect, but it felt right. That intentional practice, rooted in grace and grounded by pen and paper, became an anchor in the rhythms of my everyday life. When you set an intention, you're doing more than just declaring how you want to show up. You're also creating a framework for making choices that reflect how you want to live in your day-to-day life. So here's how it works. First is clarity. Intentions clarify what matters most to you, and they help you focus on your why rather than just the what. So if your intention is to approach challenges with curiosity, you're more likely to ask questions and seek solutions even in difficult situations. Intentions are purposeful, like we mentioned. They naturally guide your action. So with that internal compass set, you're more likely to align your choices with what feels meaningful and aligned. So if your intention is to prioritize relationships, you might put your phone down during the dinner or make time to check in with a friend. And it also helps simplify decision-making. So intentions reduce decision fatigue by giving you a clear lens to see and evaluate opportunities. So when you're faced with a new project, you might ask yourself, does this line with my intentions to focus on creativity? Also, intentions are flexible. Unlike rigid plans and SMART goals, intentions allow you to adapt. They aren't about perfection, it's about progress and alignment. So, for example, if your intention is to cultivate balance, you might give yourself permission to take a break instead of pushing through exhaustion. Now, I want to talk about the power of writing it down. There is something transformative about putting your intentions on paper. It's a small but powerful ritual that helps you anchor your thoughts and set the tone for your actions. Whether it's jotting them down in a planner or journal or even a sticky note on your desk, writing down your intentions brings them to life. Recently, I facilitated a workshop for a corporate team on heart-based career planning, and at the beginning of class, I declared that we were going old school with pen to paper. Immediately, one of the participants, who happens to have a strong scientific background, told me more about the science of pen to paper. She said that when you write by hand, you activate more areas of your brain than typing. This includes regions in your brain associated with thinking, memory, and language. The physical act of forming letters and words requires fine motor skills and sensory feedback, which strengthens your neural connections. I find this fascinating. And then I remember back to when I used to study for tests in high school and college, one of the ways I could remember things was by rewriting my notes. And it turns out studies have shown that by writing by hand improves that retention. When you write something down, you're more likely to remember it because your brain processes the information more thoroughly. Writing forces you to slow down, think about what you're putting on paper, making it easier to clarify your thoughts and process complex ideas. When I look back at the first week of intentional living and writing my intentions on paper, what stands out most isn't the big tasks that I accomplished, but the sense of alignment that I felt. I was moving through my days with purpose and grace, not just checking boxes, but genuinely showing up. Now I want to talk about grace. Life has a way of throwing us curveballs, unexpected meetings, last-minute obligations, or simply waking up and realizing you don't have the energy you thought you would. This is where grace steps in, making intentions not just purposeful, but adaptable. When grounded in grace, intentions become a tool for flexibility, allowing you to flow with life's rhythms instead of fighting against them. Intentions are inherently flexible. Unlike rigid goals that can feel like a pass or fail marker, intentions ebb and flow with your circumstances. Grace reminds you that it's okay to pivot or adjust or even pause, and it doesn't mean that you failed. So if your intention for the day was to approach challenges with curiosity, but a particular draining meeting leaves you exhausted, grace allows you to shift your focus to rest and recharge instead. If your weekly intention was to create space for meaningful connections and reach out to 2 new people, but family obligations take over, grace lets you reframe the intention to be fully present with your loved ones. So hopefully you can hear the difference there between rigid SMART goals and intentional goals with grace. Now, a pro tip here is to adjust your intentions to match your energy. Grace gives you and invites you to adjust your intentions in a way that honors where you are. So here's what this might look like. In terms of a daily adjustment, start each day by checking in with yourself. What's your energy level? What's happening in your life? Modify your intentions to reflect what feels realistic and meaningful for that day. So if you're feeling high energy, maybe you tackle priorities with focus and determination. If you're low energy, maybe your intention is to be kind to yourself and take things one step at a time. Weekly refinements might look like this. Of course, life looks very different from one week to the next. And at the start of each week, you can review your intentions and adjust them to align with the week ahead. So if you're noticing that you have a really busy week, maybe you set an intention to stay grounded and focus on the essentials. If you have a quieter week, maybe you set an intention to explore creative ideas and take on new challenges. And then, of course, there's seasonal shifts. As seasons change, so do our priorities, energy levels, and goals. So revisit your intentions at the start of each season to ensure they align with where you are right now. Springtime can bring new energy. So maybe you want to embrace fresh ideas and opportunities. Or maybe in the fall, you want to set an intention to let go of what no longer serves you. So here's an example. Let's say you start your week with the intention to start a new project and create the project plan while showing up for your work with creativity and focus. Maybe on Monday, you feel energized and dive into brainstorming and figuring out the plan and staying aligned with your intention. But then Wednesday rolls around and you had a sleepless night, creativity and getting anything done feels out of reach. So instead of forcing it, you adjust your intention to say something like focus on completing small, manageable tasks with care. And then Friday, by the end of the week, you're probably a little bit more drained, and grace lets you shift again. Celebrate the progress that I've made and get some rest this weekend. By allowing your intentions to adapt, you create space for self-compassion while staying rooted in what matters most. The bottom line is that intentional goals with grace is the bridge between joyful ambition and sustainability. It allows you to let go. You don't have to get it right every time. It allows you to honor yourself. Let's face it, you're human. Life isn't static and neither are you. Grace gives you permission to adapt and then maintaining alignment. So even when circumstances change, grace keeps you connected to your values and your intentions. So try this, a 5 minutes to flourish call to action this week to practice weekly intention setting. If you're ready to bring this into your own life, here's a simple way to get started. Set aside a little bit of time, 5-10 minutes at the start of your week. Choose a quiet moment when you can reflect without distractions. Ask yourself, how do I want to show up this week? Think about your values, your energy, and what feels most meaningful right now. Then write it down. Jot down 1 to 3 intentions, keep them simple and heartfelt. So maybe it's create my new project plan and approach it with focus and creativity. Or maybe it's I'm going to show up for my family this week and be present. Or maybe it's I want to run 3 miles at some point this week and I'm going to take care of my body with rest and nourishment. And then you want to check in each day. So review your intentions each morning as a grounding reminder and let them guide your actions and decisions. So as we wrap up today's episode, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered. We've explored how grace-filled intentional goals act as a compass, guiding your actions and aligning you with what matters, as well as your energy, all while allowing you to adapt to life's inevitable twists and turns. We clarified the difference between rigid goals and flexible, heart-based intentions, highlighting how intentions focus on your why and how, offering a meaningful framework for purposeful living. And we uncovered the transformative power of pen to paper, how physically writing your intentions sharpens your focus and increases your likelihood of following through. So where do you start? Start small. Be consistent. Give yourself some grace. The beauty of this practice is that it evolves with you, becoming a grounding force in your daily rhythms. And through it all, remember the simple but powerful phrase, be where your feet are. Let it remind you to stay present, grounded, and intentional in every moment, no matter how big or small. Thank you so much for joining me this week as we work toward a more intentional, heart-based way of living and working. I'll be back next week with the third part in our series about laying the groundwork for a radiantly happy and healthy year ahead. As always, the notes from today's episode are on the blog at flourish.careers/blog. I'll talk to you next time.